This is your evening news update for Wednesday, September 8th. Alex Tasker, the former Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited executive linked to the Donville Innis cash for coverage scandal, is to be turned over to the United States authorities to stand trial. Chief Magistrate Ian Wheats handed down the ruling in the District A Magistrates Court. But the extradition has been stayed for another 15 days, and Tasker remains on bail while his lawyers are set to appeal the decision made Wednesday afternoon. U.S. federal authorities want Tasker to be tried for his alleged role in a money laundering scheme that led to the conviction in the U.S. of ex-Minister Innis of pocketing bribes to award government contracts to ICBL. In other news this Wednesday, Senator Lucille Moore returned to the upper chambers today for the first time in 8 months. Her absence had prompted recent calls from opposition Senator Caswell Franklin for her seat to be vacated, since she had been away longer than 6 months permitted by the Constitution. But when she took to the floor during the morning debate on the resolution to vest the property of the former Glenderry prison to the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc. for tourism development, Moore chided authorities for not allowing senators to work remotely in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's being used in order for people to be able to do their business virtually, in a virtual world. We see it all the time. We see it in other parliaments. As a matter of fact, Mr. President, the Parliament of Barbados uses the technology for elected members to be able to participate in the House, so that all of the elected members don't have to come together in the same room and space in order to conduct the business of the people. But not so, Mr. President, for the Senate. Not so. No amendment or adjustment has been made to allow us as people to be able to conduct our business unless we come here in person. We must be here in person, Mr. President, for this to happen. But not so. There are all kinds of theories. I don't know what they are. I have no idea. Some people are saying the reason why that senators must come in person and not elected members is because senators only make $1,400 a month. Oh, sorry, I'm being corrected, Mr. President. I apologize. $1,400.79 a month. Or $14.79 a month, Mr. President. There are chairmen of boards, Mr. President, that make more than that. But they're not being asked to come here in this particular environment. 21 people, Mr. President, 5 staff members and other people in order to conduct the business because, Mr. President, there's technology available that allows other aspects of the same parliament to be able to meet that are not afforded to the Senate.
The spike in the island's COVID-19 cases is continuing. 87 people tested positive for the viral illness from the 1,373 tests conducted by the Barbados Santos Public Health Laboratory on Tuesday. The new cases consist of 70 people who are 18 years old and over and 17 who are under the age of 18. There are currently 607 people in isolation. Overall, the island has recorded 5,573 confirmed coronavirus cases since March 2020. 51 people have died. Just over 35% of the population is fully vaccinated. Prime Minister Mia Mottley says the world is standing at the edge of a moral precipice as she criticized the international community for not doing much to tackle the climate change and its impact on small island developing states. Addressing the virtual high-level dialogue on climate action in the Americas today, Mottley questioned whether world leaders were prepared to take the necessary action to save lives, livelihoods, and the planet.
The word urgent is now becoming overused because it is not being addressed, but urgent is really what it is. We've all read that, and I quote, "Unless there are immediate, rapid, and large-scale reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius will be beyond reach." We stand here today, my friends, at the edge of a moral precipice. As leaders of Latin America and the Caribbean, it is our duty to our people, to our region, and to our planet to take the decisions necessary and to follow these decisions with action that will effect positive change in the lives and livelihoods of those people and those nations which are now suffering the worst consequences of climate change.
Government has commissioned a special task force to prepare a report on the digitalization of the economy and to assess the viability of the international business and financial services sector. Word of this from Minister of International Business and Industry Ronald Topping as he addressed the launch of the Barbados International Business Association's Global Business Week. He says government is positioning itself to be on the forefront of the international business trends.
That team, the Global Business Review Task Force, GBRT, was therefore constituted in August of this year. And last week, as you heard, held a 3-day meeting with stakeholders from government, BIBA, Invest Barbados, the private professionals across related industries, and partners with an international perspective. There was robust discussion, in particular on those existing areas where improvements were required, and suggestions were proffered with regard to potential lines of business which to date had not been fully exploited and in which Barbados could most certainly have competitive advantage. It was reiterated time and again that Barbados needed to be strategic and target a few niche areas in which to excel. Fintech, intellectual property, and the creation of research parks were but a few of these areas that were named.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To regional happenings, the Chief Medical Officer in Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Rohan Parasram, says the country will not be changing its travel protocols. He explained that more than 14,000 fully vaccinated people who arrived in the country since the border reopened on July 17th, only 2 people have tested positive for COVID-19. More in this report from TTT News.
If we look at that cohort, 2 persons positive out of 14,222, it means that 99.986% of them did not develop COVID upon entry into the country, at least that we are not aware. It is an extremely small percentage of people to change the policy for.
Chief Medical Officer Dr. Roshan Parashram is defending entry protocols into this country, saying there has been a very small percentage of fully vaccinated people testing positive for the virus. The 2 vaccinated individuals who had the virus also tested positive for the Delta variant, but Dr. Parashram says one of them would have undergone some form of quarantine since that person is involved in the energy industry and was in quarantine prior to being deployed offshore, and says that person's 8 contacts have since tested negative for the virus. The other vaccinated person, though, would have been able to go straight home, where they developed symptoms and 4 close contacts have been identified. However, Dr. Parashram says although there is no requirement to isolate upon return, vaccinated people should still do so as a precaution.
On the international front, 9 days after Hurricane Ida slammed into the Gulf of Mexico, about 4/5 of the region's offshore production remain at a standstill, making the storm one of the most costly weather events since back-to-back storms in 2005 cut outages for months. More in this report from Reuters TV.
Oil producers are still struggling to restart operations. About 4/5 of the region's offshore production remains shut. Nearly 80 production platforms are unoccupied, making the storm among the costliest for oil production since 2005. Those shutdowns are expected to continue for weeks. Already, nearly 18 million barrels of oil have been lost to the market, and analysts fear that could rise to 30 million this year. Still, that's far less than the 162 million barrels lost in a 3-month period in 2005 after back-to-back hurricanes Katrina and Rita struck the region, according to consultancy Facts Global Energy. The Gulf's offshore wells produce roughly a sixth of U.S. crude oil output.
That's news, but for the very latest, you can visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.